I think that sometimes the distinction between abusive speech and abusive action can be an artificial distinction. You might say, why is it wrong to be abusive about politicians and send them racist and sexist stuff online? It doesn't matter. All their threats will never happen. But Parliament saw one of our colleagues, Joe Cox, killed. And that sort of action, it's not necessarily the consequence of abusive language, but it is related to abusive language. On the Grenfell Tower thing, I don't think it should be a crime unless the police learn stuff that I don't know. But please, I met a number of those people who died, who had to see their relatives die in Grenfell Tower, who ran down those steps over dead bodies from Grenfell Tower. And I think it is horrific what was done. May not be a crime, but utterly horrific. If you understand the reality of Grenfell Tower, you know it utterly detestable and wrong. But as I say, you can't just say, well, you can call people packies and niggers, it doesn't really matter. It has no relationship to anything else. That type of abusive language does have a relationship to actions which are genuinely harmful and damaging and cruel. And I think sometimes when people are dismissive about, you know, racist and sexist language, they need to be careful, because what you do is you create a climate where certain actions become legitimate.
Jordan Peterson.
I know in Scotland the police had put up advertisements in the tube encouraging people to turn people in for offensive behaviour online. It seems to me, for example, if you're concerned about knife crime, then maybe one of the things you don't want to do is have your police investigating offensive speech. And one of the things I do see happening in the UK as an outsider that's really quite terrifying to me is that there are increasing restrictions put on people's ability to speak forthrightly, and that the consequence of that restriction and the criminalization of what hypothetically constitutes offensive speech is going to be a cure that's so much more worse than the disease that we can hardly imagine it. It's a dreadful thing to see that happening in the UK. And so, I mean, people say things that are reprehensible all the time, but we can't always agree on what they are. But to start to criminalize that's hypothetical.
Are you saying there should? Are you saying nothing that anybody says should ever be counted as a crime? Racist
well, there's incitement to crime. That should be counted as a crime and has been for a very long time in the British common law tradition. But other than that, you should be very careful about what you regulate as speech. Who's going to regulate it? Who's going to define hate? That's the real issue. It's not that there's not hate. There's plenty of it. The question is who defines hate and how is it prosecuted?
I'm not